Welcome to the Extreme Underground, the show where I take a look at some of the most disturbing and controversial films in the world of cinema. Today I'll be taking a look at Grotesque. Written and directed by Koji Shiraishi, this movie is about a doctor that kidnaps a young couple and forces them into a game of torment and slowly extinguishes their hopes for survival. This is a couple on their very first date. They're walking through a tunnel and they're attacked by this crazed doctor with a hammer. He ties them up and tells them if they want to live, then they have to show their desire to live. He wants to see how much they value each other's lives. And he puts them in a situation where he basically asks the guy, like, would you die for her, and vice versa? And he tests to see if that's actually true. This is one of those movies that's been recommended, and I'm glad I finally watched it, because I've seen the poster a ton of times, I've heard other people talking about it, so it's nice to finally see it for myself. So basically this movie is all about the torture aspects. It sets out to make the audience feel uncomfortable, both from a sexual violence standpoint, as well as just over-the-top gore. And I think it succeeds in both aspects. When it comes to the sexual violence, both our man and woman are tied up, and the doctor cuts the woman's clothes off and starts licking her for a very long time. It was very awkward to watch, and he's just constantly licking and sucking on this girl's boobs and fingering her. Right after that, he goes over to the guy, jerks him off. So this whole situation is gross immediately. When it comes to the gore, the first real big gore scene we see are our couple laying down with their hands shackled, and he gets a big chainsaw and he cuts their fingers off, and it looks so real. It's really disgusting, but it's a very unnatural cut. Like in many movies, usually it's like a clean cut. In this one, it's pretty gritty. The fingers go onto the floor, and he makes necklaces out of the fingers for each of the people. He cuts off the woman's nipples, which looks extremely real, and then guys out there are definitely going to feel some pain when our doctor grabs some nails and says, hey man, I'm gonna nail your balls to this table. Like, you can back out now, just let me know. And he doesn't back out and gets like 4 or 5 nails right through the balls. And then he proceeds to cut his dick off. So it's pretty painful to watch. You're definitely gonna feel some of these torture aspects. And mainly because the practical effects are so realistic. Like, everything looks extremely legit. After this, it kind of shifts pace because the doctor realizes these people do want to live. And even though I've tortured them to this degree, they still show that desire, and that's exactly what he was looking for and why this experiment existed in the first place for him, is that he just wanted to see that people cared about their lives. He puts them into hospital beds, he starts feeding them. They're still locked down to some extent, but they're on the road to recovery, and he's harboring them back to good enough health to let them go. And he even says that he's gonna let them go in a couple days. And then something changes and he decides he just wants to torture them again. And he's got one big thing that would prove for a fact that they want to live. And I feel like the man is put in a really shitty situation here because there's no way he could live. Like, he's gonna die. Maybe the woman could get out, but we find out that that's not the case either. So what happens is the doctor makes a hole, rips out his intestine, puts it onto a chain, and says, okay, now you're gonna walk over to the woman, which is gonna make your intestine fall out as you get closer and closer, and you're gonna pick up the scissors and you're gonna cut her free. And once she's free, she can just leave this place, which is said to be like the ultimate sacrifice. The man and the woman had this conversation before they were kidnapped. She asked, would you die for me? And this is him showing that yes, he would. So he crawls over with his intestine flying out. He cuts the intestine off, which he was instructed to do. Then he cuts her feet free, and as he goes to cut her arms free, there's a wire in the rope, which just goes to show everybody that this was all for nothing, because that girl was never gonna get out of the trap ever. So the practical effects are great, the production value is very high, and everything looked really gritty. If you like extreme cinema, which is probably the reason you're here, this has the gore that you're looking for. It's a really gross setting, and while the story isn't that deep, it does have some story. So it's not just gore, although it does seem like it was mostly shock value stuff. And while I wouldn't say it necessarily shocked me, it did make me like cringe at certain aspects, especially the ball scene. The biggest issue that I have is the way that this all came to an end. This whole movie had like a really decent pace, and it wasn't trying to be funny, it was trying to be dark and gritty, and they were successful in that. But at the end, the girl gets her head cut off, it flies through the air, and then bites the guy. Obviously, when it comes to like Japanese films, there's always something crazy like this, it seems. And this is one of those movies where you don't think that that's gonna happen. And unfortunately, it does. It doesn't kill him, but like the fact that it even happened, and like when the head's on the ground, it's still like alive. I don't get it. This happened in Brutal too, but in Brutal, they had the head like talking to the guy as well. Like, I don't know what it is about decapitated heads needing to talk or move. It's just strange, and it takes you out of it. Like, you're watching this movie, it's not the best movie, but it was normal-ish. Granted, it is like torture porn, but it had a pretty normal story, and then you have this stupid head biting somebody. I don't get it. Overall, I'm glad I watched Grotesque, but it's not the best movie. I think that some people will like it, some people will hate it, especially because of the ending, but it did have a good production value, really solid practical effects, and kind of a twist when he says that he's going to let them leave, and then also another twist when he goes back to torturing them. So it had some good peaks and valleys, but at the end of the day, I don't know that I enjoyed myself necessarily. Like, it was worth watching, but I hated the ending. So I'm giving this 2.5 pieces of cake out of 5. As always, thank you for watching. Like this video and comment below with your thoughts on the film if you've seen it. If you haven't and you do want to check it out, links are in the description. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with everything Bloodbath and beyond.